Hi everyone, I'm Spencer Bailey. I live here in Burlington, Vermont, and I am a competitive stand-up paddleboarder. I've raced in both technical races and long-distance races all over the United States, and even in places like Hawaii. I love stand-up paddleboarding. I think it's great for the body. I think it's great for the mind. And I'm going to give you a little bit of information to help you get into the sport, or if you're already into the sport, some opportunities for you to progress and maybe take your paddling to the next level. So the first thing you're going to need if you want to try stand-up paddleboarding is you're going to need a board, you're going to need a paddle, and you're going to need some safety equipment. Like any sport on the water, stand-up paddleboarding, while beautiful and fun, really comes with some risks. Obviously, drowning is the most significant. But anytime you go out on the water, it's really important to make sure that you have the right equipment and that you're checking the weather and the conditions that you're going to be encountering. Different bodies of water have different risks. If you're going to be on the ocean, maybe it's surf. If you're going to be on a lake, sometimes wind and waves can be an issue. So we'll talk a little bit about equipment selection and some of the safety equipment you're going to need to get out on the water. So the first thing you're going to need to get into stand-up paddleboarding is a stand-up paddleboard. There's a couple of different shape classes. The one on the right here is what we call a recreational shape. These boards are a little bit wider, a little bit shorter. You can buy them in inflatable and hardboard styles. But what you're really looking for in a recreational board is width, because width is what's going to give you stability. And if you haven't stand-up paddleboarded before, you'll learn pretty quickly that stability is something that you need to get the hang of before you can progress to something like a more race shape over here to the left, which is going to be a lot skinnier and it's going to be a little bit longer. So recreational paddleboards, again, you can get inflatable or hard boards. There's trade-offs to both. An inflatable board is going to be easy to fold up and carry with you in your trunk, but you're going to have to pump it up every time you use it. And the PSI, if you don't get it filled up enough, can make the board a little bit squishy, and it just makes it hard to paddle on. So I always recommend, if you have a place to keep a hard board and the ability to transport it on your car, I always recommend going with a hard board because it's going to be more forgiving and it's going to perform better, especially in rough water. Race boards, which is mostly what I paddle, those are going to be, and we won't get into race board shapes, but there's a lot of different styles you can get into. This here is a 22-inch. That's pretty advanced. I would say if you're going to get into a race board shape, start a little bit wider, try that out. But really it's about practicing and getting time on the water. All those little muscles that you use in your feet to balance will get better and better. And you'll start with a rec board. Maybe you'll go a little bit narrower, a little bit narrower. The trade-off is, of course, that a narrower board is going to be faster and it's going to give you more distance, whereas a recreational board is going to be more stable but a little bit slower on the water. So the second thing you're going to need is going to be a paddle. There's a lot of different paddle styles out there. There's a lot of different paddle shapes. The two main things to think about are, do I want a fixed paddle or do I want an adjustable paddle? If you're new to stand-up paddleboarding, I always recommend getting an adjustable paddle. And the reason why is that you may want to share it with friends or family, and it gives you the ability to adjust the length and figure out what it is that you like and how you want it to feel before you go to a fixed paddle. And this is a paddle that is cut specifically to a specific length, and it's a little bit lighter. So a paddle adjustment, you're going to want to, before you get out on the water, look for a height of the paddle that's somewhere between your wrist and your elbow. I tend to go a little bit shorter because my shoulders don't love me as much as they used to. So I tend to be closer to the elbow when I go out. You can see this is my cut paddle. It's just about to my elbow. So I always recommend getting an adjustable, playing with the height, see what feels right, and then and then you're almost ready to paddle. Before you head out on your paddleboard, like I said, you're going to want to check the weather and the water conditions. How cold is the water? Is there wind? Is there storms in the forecast? How heavy is the surf? Like any water craft, you're going to want to make sure that the conditions you're heading out into are going to be safe and in line with your abilities. It does happen that strong wind can make it difficult to paddle against. So if you're going to be out in the wind, if you're going to be out in the waves, check the weather, make sure the conditions look good for your ability level. Now we'll talk a little bit about safety equipment. Safety equipment is really, really important. Leashes and PFDs are things that I would say should be required for every stand-up paddleboarder. I wear a leash and I wear a PFD every time I head out. There's two types of PFDs. There's a traditional PFD that you wear on your body. If you're not a strong swimmer or if you're new to stand-up paddling, I would recommend wearing one of these appropriate for your weight and height. They do make lap belts that you can wear. These are inflatable, but if you need it, you have to pull the cord and you have to make sure that the canister inside is fresh and that it actually works. So you'll have to test these from time to time. So if you're new to stand-up paddling, like I said, I would go with a traditional PFD. And then if you want to and you feel comfortable, you can graduate to one of these. A lot of times folks will put their PFD under the bungee straps on their board. And that meets Coast Guard regulations. But if the paddleboard gets away from you and your PFD is in the bungee, then you're in trouble. The most important piece of equipment in that case is going to be your leash. And so you're going to want to make sure it's securely fastened to the board and that you have it around your ankle or just below your knee, and make sure it's tight. The leash can actually be one of the most important pieces of safety equipment that you have, because if the water's freezing cold and you fall in with a PFD and your board gets away from you, you're still in trouble. So you need that board to get out of the water. So I always recommend wear a PFD and bring a leash. Those are the two key pieces of safety equipment that you're going to need. Okay, so before you head out, it's usually a good idea to become familiar with some of the equipment and how to use it. This is a paddle. A lot of people you'll see out on the water, they instinctively want to turn the paddle so that the angle is facing down towards them. That is not the correct way to paddle. The correct way to paddle is with your hand on top, your other hand in the middle, and then you're going to want to make sure that the blade face is angled forward. There's some good reasons for that, because when you drive into the water, they call it your catch, you actually want that forward momentum built into the paddle. So you're locked in, blade goes in, and you're already moving forward. So make sure that you're holding the paddle that way. And then on one side, you're going to be paddling this way. And then when you want to paddle on the other side, switch hands and paddle that way. So it's a lot like canoeing or some other paddle sports, but just, when you're switching hands, I always like to switch here so I don't drop the paddle. Before you go out, you're going to want to make sure that all your equipment looks good. Give everything a good once over. Paddle looks good, board looks good. As you can see, I have my leash and my PFD, and I'm ready to head out. So before you get on the water, an important thing to think about is, where do I stand on the paddleboard? The good news is almost all paddleboards have a center handle. Now this center handle is in the center for a reason. It's not just balanced weight-wise, but it's actually in the center of the water line. So when you stand, typically you're going to want to stand on either side of the handle. Let's head out. So everyone always gets nervous when it's time to actually get on the paddleboard and stand up if it's your first time. So I always recommend starting out on your knees. So when you get on the board, just kind of feel it for a minute. And then start out paddling on your knees. Okay, nice and easy. When it's time to stand up, put your hands in a solid place, and then slowly kind of get the feel for it, okay? It's gonna feel a little tippy at first. Just calm your body. That's the key. Just calm your body. Just let your body respond to the water. And then if you feel like you're going to fall, get back down on your knees. So it's sometimes a little bit disconcerting. You know, the water's moving, you're having trouble balancing. But over time, it'll get easier, right? Your body will instinctively respond to those little movements, and then you'll get to enjoy it a lot more. So, time on water is your friend. So practice, and have fun out there. So when you're out on the water, you see a lot of people standing around. They're kind of leisurely paddling. It's one of the joys of stand-up paddling is you get to see into the water. You get to see some of the wildlife. It's a great way to get out and have a relaxing time. If you want to cover some ground, though, it's better to practice a little bit of form on your paddle stroke. So there's kind of three main parts to the stroke. There's going to be the catch, which is when the blade goes into the water, and then there's going to be you're going to once you have a good solid catch, you're going to pull forward, and then the blade's going to exit the water. And so if you think of it a little bit like a golf stroke, where you're kind of practicing each piece in your head, thinking about different aspects of your paddle stroke while you're doing it, you can start to get more efficient, and you can start to get a little bit more strength into it. The nice thing about stand-up paddling is that when you're out there, you're actually working all the parts of your body, because you're using your legs, you're using your core, you're using your arms, your back. So it's really a full body workout. It's one of the reasons I love doing it. So again, when you're out on the water, just think about the three different parts of the stroke: the catch, the pull, and the exit. That's pretty much all there is to it. We won't be doing a full stroke technique clinic today, but if you want to get out on the water, again, just think about those three things, and then practice it. So that's pretty much all there is to it. As you can see, it's a beautiful day. Maybe it's time to go for a paddle. So you've gotten into stand-up paddleboarding. You're very comfortable on your rec board. You're thinking about getting into some touring or some racing. Where do you go, right? There's actually a pretty strong community of race paddlers out there. I am a team rider with a group called Wind and Waves here in Burlington, Vermont. We have a race team, and we practice on Wednesdays at the Burlington Surf Club. So if you're interested in learning about racing, practicing stroke technique, advancing your paddling, it's a great way to do it, to connect with the community here in Burlington, Vermont. Most major cities have a race team. So there's a race team in Montreal, Quebec City, down in Boston, Connecticut, and there are races pretty frequently throughout the summer. So there's a race in actually Connecticut in June that I'll be at. There's one in New York City that same weekend. So, Paddle Guru is a great resource to find races and connect with other paddlers. And it's a really wonderful community. Folks really are focused on improving their technique, staying in shape, and getting out on the water. And it's a great group of people. So if you're interested in getting into racing, I really recommend it. It's been rewarding for me. I race, like I said, all over the country. I'm actually headed to Hawaii this summer to compete in the World Championships of stand-up paddling, which is an inter-island race. So it's 32 miles between Molokai and Oahu. So there really aren't limits to how far you can progress your paddling if you really want to challenge yourself. So for anyone who is interested, I always say, find your local community paddle group and get involved.